Hello and welcome to day 5 of the Naturopathic Medicine Week. So today's a bit different. So I struggled to get a 5th naturopath. I tried a few and for whatever reasons it didn't work out. So I'm plan C. This was never in the plan at all. And now I'm in the seat of being interviewed. I actually feel a bit sick, because I much prefer being the one asking the questions, I have to say. So I'm really pleased that my very good friend, Dr. Robyn Charlton, has agreed to interview me, which is going to feel very strange. But over to you, Robyn. I'll let you just introduce yourself quickly before we dive in.
Yes, Sarah, the interviewer, is here in the interview. But I love it when you interviewed me. So I am a psychiatrist who's got a business now called a Mind Fitness Doctor. So how we train our mind in mind fitness like you would in physical fitness, through mind fitness and yoga, coaching, and courses. So that's me, and I'm been really happy to be on this journey with you, Sarah. We've known each other for like nearly over 2 years, I think.
Over 2 years, yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, really, really interested in hearing your story, actually. So when you interviewed me, it was a lot of aha moments and telling my story, and so I'm really excited in hearing your story. And I think even though you introduced that saying that you're the plan C, I think other people that are part of your group will be really interested in hearing where you've come from and why you're doing what you do. Yeah. So the first question then, Sarah, is what got you interested in naturopathy, and why did you study it?
Okay, so there's actually 2 parts. There's 2 stories to the answer to that question. And the first part is when I had, like a lot of naturopaths, when I had my daughter, my first child. And I'd already been a bit of a greenie and was into environmental. I'd studied environmental science at university, and I was a bit of a greenie. But I didn't know anything about natural medicine, which looking back now, I just think is really odd. But my daughter was 18 months old, and she developed thrush, and it had got so bad that her bottom was actually ulcerated. And I'd seen 2 or 3 different doctors. We tried different medications, steroid cream, you name it. And at one point, one of the doctors said that they didn't know how to help her, and she might end up having to go to hospital because the ulceration had got so bad. And I remember every time I saw these doctors, I would say to her, do you think it's diet? Do you think that I'm feeding her something that's causing this? And the answer was always the same: don't be stupid. It's got nothing to do with it. Completely different. Why would you even think that? And so I was in that place of feeling like complete failure. I had no idea what was going on. I had a niggling feeling it was diet, but I had no clue. And then a naturopath came and spoke at my mother and baby group. And it was the first time I'd ever heard about naturopathy. I had no clue. I come from Britain, and in Britain, naturopathy is not really a thing. People are naturopaths, but it's not. Homeopathy is quite big. Herbal medicine is kind of big, but homeopathy is a lot bigger. And I played with homeopathy, but no clue about naturopathy. And she talked about healthy diets for babies. And I just remember listening to her thinking, what you're saying makes total sense. Why did I not know this? How come I've never heard of a naturopath? How come this is the first time I've ever come across this? And so I made an appointment.
So how would you define naturopathy then? How would you? Yeah. What's your definition of it? Like, what was she? Yeah.
So the definition of naturopathy, as I understand it now, is probably different than then. At that point, just hearing her, she was just talking about how diet affects the body, and that was the first time I'd really understood that. When I went to see her, the thing that I loved about her is that I felt really listened to, that she asked lots of questions, not just about the diet, and I came away feeling like you go to a GP and it's 10 minutes and it's all about symptom relief. She was digging deeper than that. And I'm like, so if I go off on a tangent, so what my definition of naturopathy is, the two things that I think make naturopathy different from, say, nutritional lifestyle medicine is, one, the idea of holism, the idea that we are so much more than the physical body. We're mental, emotional, spiritual, energetic. We're connected to the environment, and what happens to the environment affects us, and how we are affects the planet. We are creative, we're social, we're all these layers, and all of those layers need to be looked at. You can't just deal with the physical. And and lots of traditional medicines understand them. Traditional medicine understands that, and naturopathy is very much part of that. And then the other part that I really think defines us is the idea of vitalism, the idea that there's this intelligent energy inside us that just knows how to get back to balance. And what we need is to provide the environment by looking at those layers, providing the environment so that the body can do that. It knows what to do. I think Linda said on Monday, when she broke her arm, doctors can't make the bone heal. You can create an environment in which it happens gently, naturally, maybe even a little bit more quickly, perhaps. But all you can do is sit and wait and allow that innate energy or that innate intelligence to do what it does better. And then, the bone cells do their business, do their work. And so that, to me, is a huge part of naturopathy too. It's about looking at the person as a whole. It's about digging much more deeply as to what's going on. You might have these symptoms, but you have to look at the layers to find out what the real root cause is, and then provide that environment so that the body can then get back into balance, which is its natural way. It wants to get back to balance. We're meant to be healthy and well, and we just got to find that environment so that it can do that. So for me, that's why I love naturopathy. And so listening to her talk, it just made total sense. And then when I went to see her, the thing that came out of that is that she said to me, she asked about the diet. And of course I said, oh no, my daughter eats really healthy. I'm really careful. I was vegetarian. In fact, at that time I'd stopped becoming a vegetarian, but we ate really well. And she said, how many, tell me what you eat, how many vegetables, how many pieces of fruit you have? 10 pieces of fruit a day. And I was so proud of myself that my daughter was having 10 pieces of fruit a day, because that's like healthy. And, God bless her, there was no judgment whatsoever. I mean, she must have thought I was a moron, but she kind of pointed out that 10 pieces of fruit probably was a little bit too much, and that there is sugar in fruit, and that feeds yeast, and perhaps we should cut the fruit down. So we actually removed fruit from Molly's diet completely, just for a couple of days. And I couldn't believe it. I remember actually it made me cry, because for 18 months of not knowing what to do, of medications, of doctors, of injections, of you name it, she took it. Within 2 days of not having fruit, her bottom healed. And after a week, her bottom was completely better. Yeah. And I remember thinking, wow, how could something so simple make such a difference? Fruit is great, but food can either be poison or it's good for us. Too much or too little. And something just clicked that said, I want to know more about this, because why bloody hell didn't the doctors tell me this? The doctors should have known this. I went to them. I didn't know about naturopathy. The doctors should have said it's the diet. But of course, doctors don't know, because unless they specifically train in that, they're not going to know. So I was quite cross.
And you're causing more harm the more that you're investigating and doing, and that kind of diet.
Like the diet should be the first thing you look at. So
you were thinking you were doing the right thing by, it wasn't because you were not wanting to do. You were trying to do the best by Molly,
doing the best they can with the knowledge they've got, and not knowing, unless you're told, you don't know what you don't know. So
it's just that little thing that broke the cycle, and everything came back into balance.
So that set me off on a path of wanting to know more. So I was already really interested in medical herbalism, because I had a lot of friends who are medical herbalists, and so I was dabbling and playing and making growing herbs and making products, but I wanted to read more about nutrition, and I wanted to find out more about naturopathy. And then I'd heard about World Park College, because there's a baby shop next door that I used to go to, and then I'd look over the wall and look at all these people studying and thinking, I wonder what goes on in there. It's very interesting. But the thing that made me then want to be a naturopath was, and this is a very long story that I'll try and shorten, but basically my son When he was born, he's my second child, when he was about 15 months old, he swallowed a padlock, as you do. And
as you do, yeah.
As you do. And that took me on a whole new path where I took him to the A&E because he choked, and I did first aid, took him to, and obviously dislodged it, but didn't get rid of it. Took him to the accident and emergency, and the doctor there, who was a very new doctor, I found out later on, couldn't have been more dismissive of me. Told me to go away. I was over anxious mum. There's nothing wrong with him. She wouldn't x-ray him. I told her that he'd been choking. She told me that he probably had tonsillitis, viral tonsillitis, gave me antibiotics. And so we had a row about that. Because why are you giving me antibiotics?
But you saw him, you knew what he'd done.
Oh, I said, because I didn't see what it was he put in his mouth, she didn't believe me. So I got sent home, and then after about 4 or 5 days, I learned a lot about gut instinct.
Listening to yourself, your mum.
Took me a month though, because I kept thinking something's not right. I know something's not right, and he stopped eating it. He went back to only eating mushy baby food, and he started losing weight. I could visibly see that. So I then took him to my GP and said, I'm not going anywhere until somebody looks at him. And so she was very good. She was a brilliant GP. And then so she sent me to Starship. I then saw God knows how many people in triage, and I kept having to argue my case and say, I'm telling you something's wrong. I then got sent to X-ray. 3 hours in X-ray, watching people come in and go in. And in the end, I lost the plot, screamed and shout, jump up and down, was the mum from hell. And then they just pulled me in.
Yes, Mama Bear.
Yeah, Mama Bear. So they X-rayed him just to shut me up. And I never forget, I was lying there while they X-rayed him, and the X-ray specialist came running in, and she said, sit him up now. And I said, why am I sitting him up now? And then she said, do you know anything about a padlock? And I said, what are you on about? So she showed me the X-ray, and I've got it like, it's like a Tom and Jerry, kind of cartoon X-ray with this big padlock in the middle of it, and it dislodged right there. And I said, what do you mean? I've been lying down for 4 days. Don't tell me now we can't lie down. And so he basically went into surgery. We were told it would be a quick 10-minute pull-out surgery. An hour and a half later, he's still in surgery. And basically it had, because it was an unlocked padlock, the hook had got caught in the esophagus. And in order to get it out, they were going to have to rip his throat and take it out this way, but they didn't. They pulled it out that way, but in doing so ripped his esophagus, which is the food pipe. So we ended, and thank God for them, because they saved his life, because if that carried on, he would have died. But then what happened then was he was in Starship with a hole in his esophagus, and they started giving him baby formula, dairy baby formula. Now, I couldn't breastfeed because I was stressed, so everything stopped. And at the time, I told them he can't have dairy. When he has dairy, he vomits. So I have problems with dairy. Molly had problems with dairy, but she has it now, and I don't. But he used to vomit. Within 10, 15 minutes of having it, he'd vomit. And they basically said, well, have you had him tested? And I said, well, I don't need to test him, because I know if he has any dairy, he vomits. So what's the point? Oh, well, if you haven't had him tested, then it doesn't count. So they gave him dairy formula. And of course, that doesn't count. Vomit. And because he was vomiting, he had a hole in his esophagus, the vomit went in his lungs. So he ended up in ICU.
Oh, Sarah, I didn't remember that part of the story. It was quite a challenge. And I just remember constantly feeling frustrated that I didn't know enough and that people weren't listening to me. And something clicked. I think I was constantly watching him all the time and asking. I was just a pain in the bum. I was constantly questioning the doctors, questioning the nurses, and they didn't like that. No.
And then they gave him lactulose to make him poo. And I remember saying to the specialist, that sounds like milk, because that got dairy in it. And he said, no. I'm thinking, no, it doesn't sound right. And he says, there's nothing in there. It's all fine. And then of course, he then vomited and was incredibly sick. And his colon swelled up. And I just remember thinking, I can't do this anymore. That I've got to take him home, because that was that gut feeling saying, listen, take him home now. And I went off and I Googled lactulose, saw it had dairy in it. And I thought, why would you not listen to me? And I actually put him on soy formula, which we had to pay a lot of money for, and that was me putting my foot down saying, that's it, you're not giving him dairy anymore.
Because look, how old is he now?
He's 14.
Yeah, so back then when we had our children at other stages, not the kind of availability of alternative formulas like there is now.
Yeah, so we had to actually get the soy formula brought in specially. It was like hundreds of dollars, but we had no choice. And we were treated like we were a pain. We were that pain family because we were just really. And so anyway, so the upshot was we took him home. I made him sleep all night. I fed him when I decided he was going to be fed rather than fed every 2 hours, which I just thought, if he's not sleeping, that can't be right.
What gave you that compassion for yourself and that courage to make that decision, Sarah? What changed?
Well, I woke up. For me, it was almost like a door opened. I woke up in the middle of the night and it was almost like there was a voice shouting at me saying, you've got to do something about this now. Your son needs you to stand up for him.
Because it was like a cascade of things that were happening, and you can just see it happening, couldn't you?
And I think I was part of that generation where you never questioned anything anyway. You believed everything you were told. And I remember sitting up in bed. It was almost like someone was shouting at me. I mean, I know that sounds woo-woo, but it was like someone was shouting at me saying, enough, you need to listen to us, whatever that us is, and do what we say. And then I remember I couldn't sleep after that because I was waiting until it was morning so that I could get to the hospital and say, right, that's it, I'm not doing this anymore. And throughout that whole period, I just learned to be courageous enough to say, I'm going to listen to my gut instinct, and I don't care if it upsets you, I don't care if I offend you. I remember one nurse saying, you think you know better than the doctor? And I said, no, I don't think I know better than the doctor, but I know my son better than the doctor.
Exactly.
And you need to listen to me. And
exactly.
So I think that whole process,
and it's not, healthcare should not be, it should be walking alongside each other.
Yeah, and it was definitely like a them and us. And I mean, I put in a complaint to the Health and Disability Commission, and we won. Which was a really, and we got an apology and you're absolutely right.
Was that about all of those bits, or was
it was mainly about that first doctor who basically completely dismissed me? And she actually, I mean, at the time I wanted to kill her, but then she wrote me a letter apologising and saying that it was a massive learning curve for her. She'd only been out of uni, I think, 4 or 5 weeks. It wasn't very long. And she was
projecting her sense of inadequacy onto you.
And so she said she said she was put on a special learning plan or whatever, and she said that from now on she would always listen to mums. And she said, we were taught this at uni, but I didn't put that into practice, and I will never do that again. So I thought, well, good, something's coming from that. And I'm absolutely not anti-medical establishment whatsoever. It was purely, that was my experience. So the reason I decided to be a naturopath was actually just so I could have a row with doctors. I mean, it was, that was it. It was like, it was fun. I wanted to do it for the hell of it because I loved nutrition and herbs, and it just seemed like fun. And I'd been a primary school teacher, and I was bored of the politics and all that, but I didn't actually study naturopathy to be a naturopath. I really did study it just for the fun of it, and just because I wanted the knowledge to have rows, but and I didn't want to be a doctor because I didn't actually really want to be a naturopath. I wanted to understand more
the
from
body,
a holistic point of view, how the body works and nutrition and everything. That's really what I wanted.
You wanted to understand what those voices, why those voices were saying that to you, like listening to yourself.
Which to me is
you
part of that kind of that holistic, you listen, balance, what your body knows. So it was really just out of interest, for the fun of it, and just so I could be confident enough to have rows with people, because at the time I felt I was listening to my gut, but I didn't feel like I had the confidence or the knowledge to then say, actually, I don't want you to give him dairy. He doesn't need to be tested. And this is, I wanted that knowledge to be able to do that. Not necessarily that a qualification, but so that was why I became a naturopath, so I could row with people.
and so now and having talked to you before, it's more now about how naturopathy can fit into mainstream medicine. How do you think that can what's your vision for that?
My
you know,
yeah,
like
my vision is that naturopathy isn't seen as something that's alternative or even complementary. I want it to be integrated. You know, for me, the dream would be that every GP practice had a naturopath working there, not a lifestyle medicine coach or anything like that, but a naturopath or even a nutritionist. Because I think that's really, really important, and everyone's working together for the benefit of the client, and there's no them and us. And I went to, God, makes my kids sound like there's always something wrong with them, but we ended up going to a hospital in Bangkok when we were backpacking ages ago with the kids, and it was a private hospital. And I remember it made me quite emotional, because I just thought this is what it should be like, because it was a hospital where you had your specialist, you had the chemist, but next to the chemist was a herbal dispensary and an organic grocer's. And the prescriptions given to people were for food and for herbs. And we saw a dermatologist, and the dermatologist talked to us not just about here's the prescription for skin cream, but also let's talk about the diet, and what diet, you know, are you having, and it was actually my daughter, what diet was she eating, and about zinc and vitamin A and probiotics. And I was like, oh my God, I've never been to a dermatologist who talks to me about diet. And
it's awesome.
And I was looking at that. They had a whole floor that was teaching patients how to cook vegetarian food. So it was a vegetarian hospital. And so I was reading the magazine, and so whenever you saw a specialist, you'd also be referred to the kitchen floor to learn how to cook whole foods and vegetarian foods. And everyone who stayed in the wards were given whole food, vegetarian breakfast, lunches, and dinners.
Oh, sounds divine.
And it was, and I thought, I've never been anywhere
real
like
healing.
This. Yeah, it was. And it was like, there was, I don't know, it was just really integrated. There was herbs, there was healthy nutrition, there was,
and it wasn't a fight.
It wasn't. It was just integrated. It was just the way it was.
This is your box of how you can get better, basically. This is,
and so you get your prescription,
take bits and pieces,
herbs and massage and yoga, and it was everything. And I just thought, man, if they can do it, I mean, it was a private hospital, but if they can do it, why can't we do this everywhere else? If nutrition and yoga and mindfulness and meditation and herbs, if people were given that as a prescription, whether they got sick or not, cracky, that would save us so much more money in the long run. So for me, it's integrated. It needs to be integrated. We, like naturopaths, medical practitioners, we need to get over our egos and start working together for the benefit of the clients. It's ridiculous. So that's my dream.
Yeah, it is. I mean, like, even as, you know, a psychiatrist myself, I have this gut feeling that a lot of the microbiome and all of that is more responsible for your mental health than doing all of the neurochemistry in your brain, you know. Absolutely. And mindfulness and the role of that. That's why I've kind of gone a bit sideways from general mainstream medicine, but not totally sideways, but a little bit. But it totally is. It's the four walls of Te Whare Tapu Whā.
And we
it's like you need to have all four walls.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't be just hard in medicine.
There,
we should be taking that on board, and it should become part of our mainstream model.
Yeah. Yeah, well, in psychiatry, we taught that a little bit about that, but then when it becomes to actually providing services, it becomes very biomedical. And so it's the theory is all very well, but sometimes it's not other things like funding and all of that. Yeah, and I totally agree with you. The body keeps the score, the body knows, and just listening to our bodies and tuning in with our bodies is a huge first step
100%
to everything. And I constantly get reminded of that. I mean, we just had that talk this morning about how I'm not listening to my body at the moment when I'm like overwhelmed and stressed, and it's nice to, like, you know, oh yes, I do know. My body does know what it needs. Yeah.
We do.
Yeah. So we do. Yeah. So how do you work now in this field? What do you do?
Okay, so there's, because I'm
naturopath.
Me, I don't do one thing, I do lots of things. So I'm very fortunate enough that I supervise at the student clinic with Linda Bailey, who we met on Monday at Well Park College. I do that. The other thing that I do, which I've just started doing, I'm really passionate about, is I am a facilitator for Active Families, and Active Families is Ministry of Health funded program. That's really about looking. It's so cool. I get to work with families who have been referred to the program through green prescription by GPs and doctors and specialists who are obese or have, you know, diabetes or any kind of, and they're mainly for children. So this is children, but with parents. And we get to, you know, give them activities that will improve their diet and also will improve their physical activity. So it's for the kids, but the families are part of that. And I get to answer questions and support the parents in how to help their kids eat healthy foods to hopefully reduce their obesity. So that I'm really excited about, and I want to see more naturopaths doing stuff like this. This is like, we're so good. You know, health prevention. I want to prevent health. Disease prevention, health promotion. That's part of being a naturopath. It's part of our guiding principles. And there's a couple of naturopaths that I know that are starting to work for DHBs and for organisations working alongside GPs. And I think, you know, things like this Active Families, that's what we should be doing more of. Helping people before they get sick. But the cost benefit of that's huge. So that for
so
me,
huge.
I love it. And that's cool. That's fun. And I get to do fun stuff.
And it's also changing healthcare into, these are your symptoms and we need to fix it, and, you know, that kind of power differential, we know how to fix it. Back to that self-agency, that people actually have the power of their own health, and that's the only way that's going to work. Absolutely. You know, the other model where you told what the treatment plan is and what you're going to do, it's not going to work until you have that kind of motivation to change and that buy-in to your own health. And health promotion is the only way it's going to.
And that's kind of, for me, is huge, because that will save the country a fortune if we can, you know, teach people how to. And most people know a lot of this, but it always surprises me that I assume people know, but they don't always know. A bit like my 10 pieces of fruit. That if people really get to know what they should and shouldn't be eating, and when I say shouldn't be eating, I don't mean like you give up whole foods, but you know, sensible eating, then that could make such a difference before the symptoms start shouting at you. So that I'm really passionate about. And people take it like simple things. If you're in charge, we're in charge of what we eat. It's the one thing we can control is what we put into our body when we eat, and that in alone, if you know what's good for you, that can make such a difference to your health. So that the Active Families, I'm really, really proud that I'm involved. Even though it's still early days, I'm really proud that I'm involved in that.
I didn't know about that, Sarah. That's awesome.
It is really cool. And then alongside that, because I'm a workaholic, I also have my own online clinic. So I see people one-on-one. I have I have a club, a health club, wellbeing club, and also I've got a gut program that's not really a gut program that I'm working on. So I'm going to tighten that up. So, and
that's exciting.
Courses and all sorts of stuff. So I'm going to try. My dream is to focus a lot more on gut health, because I kind of feel that's. If your body's the circus, the gut is the ringmaster. You know, if
totally.
Gut's healthy, everything else falls into place. So that's kind of where I'm kind of going next, which is my new. It's always been a passion. Actually, poo has always been a passion of mine. So
that's why I'm so excited for you, because I just believe that mainstream psychiatry will be coming down to involving that. Because, like I said before, more serotonin receptors in the gut than in the brain.
And I love, Julia Rutledge and what she's doing, looking at diet and mental health is, so it's becoming more mainstream, more understood and more accepted.
Yeah, and that you can get the prescription from the food. It's all around you. It's not expensive.
Absolutely. And I'm definitely not of a view that naturopathy can heal everything. You know, like when my son swallowed his padlock, you know, lemon balm wouldn't have fixed that. So I'm not the illusion that herbs and lifestyle and nutrition is the be all and end all. It's part of the whole picture. So
because that's what fragments healthcare in itself, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Like we want to be working alongside and with. And I think for myself, when someone's a good practitioner, it's when they acknowledge what they don't know and that they are curious about learning. And I think that's when you become a good practitioner or a good consultant in whatever you are as a doctor. It's not when you think that you know it all. It's when you know that what you don't know. That's what wisdom is. And then asking the questions and not having the judgment about where the answers come from. And
then being happy to like work with others and refer and know what, you know, like really important. I know what my scope is and that I don't go over that, but then I work with other people and it's like Linda said about getting a team, that it's really important that everyone has their own health team of professionals around them. And that might change dependent on your stage and your age, but we're part of that team. So we're just as important, but we're no more important.
100%. And it's person-centered. It's not like you go all these different places. It's like everyone comes to the person-centered.
Absolutely.
So what would be your three you know, all the experiences that you've talked about and all your stories and all your training and stuff, what would be your top tips that you would?
Top tips. The number one tip, which is the kind of the theme, I suppose, of the whole conversation, is about listening to your gut, listening to your intuition, listening to whatever about what you need. And it might be, and generally we know, we know deep down, but we're not always ready to go there, and that's fine. But I'd say be really honest about what it is that you think's going on. And it might not be, maybe it's to do with the food that you're eating. Maybe you know that you shouldn't eat that food, or maybe you know that you should eat more veggies. Maybe you know you should be moving your body. Maybe you know you need to go to bed early, but you're just not ready yet. It might be that deep down you know that like we said before, the symptoms you have are just messages. And sometimes the messages have to end up screaming at us before we do something. But they're messages, and we need to listen to those messages and really think, well, what is it my body's telling me? And it might be that something happened when you're a child and you've got unresolved grief, or there's unresolved anger, and that's coming out 40 years later in your symptoms. And deep down you know that, but you don't want to go there. So it's not even just about, it's those layers. It might be something that's in your environment. It might be a relationship that you've got that's not serving you. It might be, I don't know what, it could be that you're missing joy, you're missing purpose, that you're missing some creativity in your life because it's all work and nothing else. So it could be any one of those layers that could be the answer to your symptoms. So my number one tip is really look at what you think those messages are telling you. And if you're really stuck and you really have no clue, that's when you could go and see someone like a naturopath, because naturopaths are really good at interpreting those messages. So that would be my number one thing, because sometimes if you're really honest and you know what it is that you need to change, even if you don't want to, it could be something really simple. If you change that, that could be the answer. Like you talk about self-care. If you're really struggling with self-care, is it because you don't love yourself enough? Is that something that you need to work on? And maybe that's all you need to do. Maybe it's not about increasing 20 vegetables. Maybe it's just you need to find a way of loving yourself. And that's the thing that changes. So for me, that's the number one tip. My number two tip is be in nature. Get you outside. But for everyone's different. Some people it's the bush, some people it's going to the sea, some people it's just going into a park, but get out in the sun and get out in nature. So that would be another thing, whatever that looks like. And the third thing is do something fun, like find your joy. And that's another thing. If you find, like for me, yes, diet makes a massive difference, but actually if you find some time in your day to have a laugh and find something that makes you just feel joyful, even if it's for 15 minutes, that can be massive. Joy is medicine.
It is. I totally agree. Yeah. And with the nature, and just stopping ourselves in our busy lives to believe in ourselves and those symptoms. Yeah. And I think in parallel to that is what was coming up for me was when your parents as well, like having that belief that you do know and advocating for your children that you do know. I had a similar story with my second boy who never slept at all, and I had sleep specialists saying there was something medical, and medical specialists saying no, you're just a really weak mum who won't do the sleep training well. But I knew there was something that was not quite right, and it took us 2 years to find until I got listened to, and keeping on going to find that he had an immune system disorder, and that's why he was at low grade illness all the time, was never sleeping, and just having that belief that even though I may not necessarily have had any tools about how to deal with that my gut feeling was totally right. It just, everything just went into place, and the acceptance of that situation was healing in itself, because I wasn't fighting it and resisting it and thinking I was a crap mum and why wasn't he sleeping and why were we so sleep deprived, and the whole family was all affected. And then just that little so listening to yourself and listening to what was and never giving up. Trusting your sorry Sarah,
it's all right.
My mum always calls at the wrong times, in the middle of me teaching young classes and everything. Oh, that's good. So I think that's the biggest thing. I totally agree with you.
100%. Trust yourself. Deep down, listen to that gut instinct, or whatever it is that you want to call it.
And give yourself the time to stop to do that. And nature's a good reminder of that you're just stopping. And so how do people get in contact with you, Sarah?
So if you're not part of my Women's Wellbeing Circle, come and find me in the Facebook group. I love this group. It's so cool. I think it's the best group out there, but I don't know that
it is.
But I love it because I love the people, and it's I was really resistant to setting up a Facebook group, but because I thought, it'll be more work, but I love it, and I love the people in it. So come and join me in that group. It's free. You can.
What sort of things do you do in that group, Sarah?
Lordy, there's no theme. It's just kind of about anything to do with well-being. So we've done a mindful eating challenge. I did a really silly movement challenge that was just a bit of fun. I've talked about eating more veggies. I'm just about to. I've just done a spreadsheet which I haven't quite finished because I'm doing the taste test on different protein powders and what I think is the best based on the ingredients and the taste. So we do all sorts of stuff and like talks on all sorts of subjects that people are interested in, anything to do with health and well-being.
My impression too is that you're supporting other health practitioners in that circle as well. Like if you're a health
people who are health practitioners in whatever field, they can then advertise themselves, because for me it's not my group. It's like I want it to be everybody's group, so everybody can contribute and everybody can share, because that helps all of us. So it's a cool.
We're not alone.
So
I love your group too.
Come and join my group, and then you'll learn a bit more about me and what I'm like in that group. And then if you want to work with me, then you can email me. I'm Sarah B at sarahbranchley.naturopathy.com. It's a bit of a mouthful. I do have a website, which is, I've got to work on that, which is sarahbranchley.naturopathy.com. Go and have a look at that. And you can work with me one-on-one. You can come and talk to me about my programs. The club that I have has courses on it, and I do training in the club. So you can talk to me about joining that as well. So there's lots
the club is really good value for money, because Sarah puts in all her online courses that you can do in your own time and your own pace. And she supports you through your journey, and I just think it's just such an amazing value for money. So I would definitely, well, I am part of the Wellbeing Club, but yeah, so definitely I would support anyone to joining up to that.
That's cool. And it's so I've still got plans for it, but too many plans.
Oh, you've got 3 courses in there already, Sarah.
I know. Yeah, so there's a nutrition course which I still need to finish as well. There's more that I want to add to that. There's a goal setting course, there's a healthy skin course. What else?
Meditation course.
Yeah, I want a meditation course.
Yeah.
I'm going to put the detox challenge up. There's a whole bunch. So every time I have a great idea, I just put it in there so you can.
And it's only $20 a month, isn't it? I mean, it's nothing.
25.
Or 25.
You were the founding member.
Good. So, if you were to cut out 1 coffee a week, there you go.
There you go. Cool. And I know some people they want me to check their diet, and I've done that through the club as well. So I have a quick look at their diet and give them some tips. So you can use me.
That's great value for money. That's so cool.
Thank
you, Sarah. It's been awesome getting to know you more and talking to you and hearing your story. And yeah, those stories are really important.
So basically what I've come across is that I'm this really argumentative person. He's really opinionated and
no, you've come the message for me is listen to yourself. And you're like in our mindful self-compassion course that we teach, Tara Brach and Kristen Neff talk about fierce compassion. That's what you're doing. You are being kind to yourself and kind to the people that you're advocating by saying, yes, I know what I'm talking about. You're being compassionate, not argumentative.
Cool. I like the reframe.
Yeah, and the even for that young doctor that learnt from that, she's going to be such a different doctor and probably appreciative of that lesson. So yeah.
Awesome. Cool.
Well, thank you very, very much. I don't know who's interviewing who now.
It's just a conversation. It's not an interview.
Yeah.
Thank you for giving up your time to interview me.
Welcome. It was really fun.
Awesome. Take care, everyone. We'll see you soon.
Bye.